80% of billionaires had one thing in common, and that was that they're at some point in their life were in sales. And that to me was like, okay, cool. Like,
Yeah.
And then Mark Cuban, I was watching another video. He said that, if you know how to sell, you will never be broke. You will never be hungry, basically, because if you can sell something to someone, you'll always be able to, get money and put bread on your table. So that's also the one big takeaway. So for example, if you don't know where to start, a good place to start is to start learning sales.
Yeah.
And sales goes into so much into psychology, but at the end of the day, it's very simple. You want to offer something to people that is of value. And the value needs to be high enough for them to be willing to give you money for it, because giving money is an act of pain, but getting something of value is pleasure.
Yeah.
And people move towards pleasure and away from pain.
Yes.
So your value proposition needs to be higher than the price or the perceived pain that they get by giving you that amount of money. So that was a very big thing there. So if you are struggling to sell something, then I think a good point to start is to think about how you can increase the proposition of the value that you're offering.
I agree. And the other thing we learned there as well with regarding to sales is the biggest enemies of sales, maybe you remember this as well, is having no trust in a salesperson.
Oh yeah.
And having too much friction with the salesperson, or too many steps you need to do to eventually make the purchase.
Hermon.
Yeah.
Dude, that guy was crazy.
Yeah, he was crazy.
My God. So Ty brought this one speaker, Dr. Hermon something, I can't remember his surname. And he's basically this neuroscientist who studies the brain, but he also applies that to business and marketing. And they've been putting people into MRI machines and looking at how the brain reacts when it's shown, different headlines, different colors, different VSL, whatever it is, right? And then they measure where the brain gets most activated, and then they can measure because not what people say they like more or where they would buy more, but where they can actually see the brain patterns happening.
Saying something is completely different than your subconscious mind.
Yeah,
basically.
and to me, one big thing was also when he was showing that example of the landing page
I've seen it,
of the ugly one where the doctor and the headline and the trust badges and the timers and stuff, right? Because before I'd be like, man, come on, who would ever buy it? But then the numbers in the back end, similarweb.com, and so they were showing that oh yeah, this
works.
It works really well. And then now Hermon is okay, take a look at this. Because they were talking about cognitive biases. Right? Cognitive biases are these psychological things that make us act that we don't even realize it.
Makes it sell easier.
Yeah, anchoring bias, social proof bias, and all those things, right? So then he showed this page, and then he's look at how many ones you can name. And then he clicked on the next slide, and there was 24, 26 different biases pointing at all the different things. Trust badge is this, timer is this, social
photo
proof,
of the expert, the doctor.
authority of the doctor, and all these things. And I was like, wow, okay, that's very powerful. That was a very big takeaway.
Yeah, I agree, because a lot of things you didn't even notice yourself.
Yeah.
But it has influence on your buying decision, but you don't know it.
Yeah. Talking about friction, also remember he was talking about, so friction lowers the conversion rate, right? Let's put it that way. And to reduce friction, of course, you want to make sure that you have, as little distraction on your website as possible, all of that. But also a big takeaway there was the reward.
Yeah.
The higher the reward, the less friction there is going to be. So for example,
I think the higher the reward, the more friction they can handle. I think that was it, right?
Or something like that, yeah. So for example, if I tell you right now,
with the 1 hour waiting in line.
Yeah, exactly. That was the example. It was would you wait in line for 1 hour for $1?
Yeah, nobody.
Nobody would do it. Okay, would you wait in line for 1 hour for $10? No. Would you do it for 100? What about $10,000?
Exactly.
Would you stand in line for 1 hour for $10,000?
That's the thing. The reward becomes bigger and bigger, so you accept the friction that's coming with the reward.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's also this talk that we've had as well about incentives, the negative incentives and the positive incentives. So if you want to get someone to do something, think about how you can motivate them in terms of incentives. What does that person want? And how you can increase that for them and get them to do what you
Yeah,
want
from
them
A to B.
Yeah.